Welcome to Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Trucks. Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon, Tera Roberts. I'm Jason Fitz. For the next hour, we are going to get you caught up on everything. But let's face it, we got to start right out of the gates with total chaos. Dogs and cats living together. Everything is wild and crazy. It's a bye week. That means 4 teams sitting around doing nothing. Fans frustrated, can't get their lineup settled. And we even have football over the pond as we speak. We will get you caught up on everything you need to know for the rest of the day. But ladies and gentlemen, let's start with what you need to know about right now. The Vikings up on the Jets 17-10 going into the fourth quarter. There was a little bit of a scare there for a minute. Aaron Rodgers went down with what looked like could be an injury. He is back in the game. This was total domination in the first half by the Vikings, but the Jets scratching and clawing their way back into it. We will keep you updated on what it means for your fantasy football teams and the scoring as it happens. But in the meantime, you can get involved. All you got to do is use the hashtag AskFFL. And don't forget, our very own Scott Pianowski is out there on Twitter X right now answering every single question. All right, y'all have sat too long. We're ready. We're amped. We're getting excited to go. Let's get to actives and inactives from the early games. I'm on one this morning. This is just going to be one of those days. Anthony Richardson, inactive. Evan Ingram, inactive. David Njoku is active. Could be limited per Adam Schefter. Brian Robinson Jr. is active in this game. I don't think we have a lot of surprises there, but as we get started, we'll go to Andy Behrens here first. When you look at this, we'll get the rest of the injury in first. Trey McBride, questionable. George Kittle, questionable. Devin Singletary, doubtful. That's your late game. So, Andy Behrens, what stands out to you there?
Well, I'm relieved that both of those tight ends are actually going to be playing today, that Kittle and Trey McBride. McBride picked up a late week injury, so that was really a concern. So relieved that those guys are going to be involved. Also, I'm thinking about the Indianapolis receiving core, right? Maybe you trust Pittman and Downs a little bit more with Joe Flacco, right? We know that the ceiling for Anthony Richardson himself is higher than in any Joe Flacco game. But man, it's probably a little bit better right now for those Indy receivers if Flacco is at the controls.
Tera, you and I have sort of been the opposite side of the Lady Justice scales a little bit on Anthony Richardson. Like, I feel like I've been sort of the naysayer, and you've been very positive on it. At this point, with what we've seen so far, I know the injury is a big part of this, but what's your level of concern for the rest of the season moving forward for AR?
Significant concern. I know it feels unrealistic that we'll get into a scenario that, Joe Flacco just goes out there dealing again, and then they come back and Anthony Richardson is healthy, but they decide, hey, we're just gonna let Richardson sit for a little bit. We didn't think it was coming with Bryce Young that quickly, so I feel like we never know with these teams. For all we know, we could get into a situation where we miss Richardson long term, and it just makes me uncomfortable at this point. I don't think that's gonna happen, but you never know which direction these coaches are gonna go.
Harmon, before we dive into everything, give me some sort of piece here, because I feel like as we were connecting and getting ready for this show, I was listening to you guys talk about just the fantasy landscape right now. It feels, for me, in all the leagues that I'm in, like this is just a wild, unusual, weird year where nothing's easy and everybody's struggling. You've been in this business for a long time. Do you feel that all the way at your level?
Oh, brother. Behrens and I were talking about this on the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast earlier this week when, look, God bless you guys out there that just playing like regular start 2 wide receivers, start 2 running backs, 1 flex positions. Because some of these leagues that you end up in when, every analyst is trying to highbrow the other and like, oh yeah, let's get multiple flex spots in. Let's do super flex. What about a tight end premium? What if you could get a kicker bonus or something like that? You start to get in these spots where it's like, man, I'm glad I got to start Trey Sermon. I'm glad I've got him as like my 3rd flex spot or whatever. So yeah, you absolutely feel it. And I just think this season's been unique, man. I mean, we'll do fantasy face-off later, and some of these running back names, it's going to get wild and weird. But then I look at my weekly rankings, it's like, my God, these guys are kind of like top 30 backs at the position. You get past like running back 13 this week, and I think you are already in some extremely questionable territory. So yeah, everybody out there is feeling it. It's not just you all at home. It's all of us. It's everywhere across the whole world.
There's peace and comfort in knowing that everybody is struggling with this. Also, I'm hard and fast in my rules, y'all. Like, I'm sticking to this next year. I'm not going to play in any leagues with more than 8 people because it's impossible at this point. More than 8 people. Split off, make it 2
Don't be
leagues.
Soft. Don't be soft. 8 people. Fitz. The reward is in the struggle. That's part of it.
No. I'm like, at this point, I just want to play Madden on easy mode. I just want to win. That's all I want to do. All right, let's get into the top fantasy storylines for week 5. We'll give you some of the things that we've got our eyes on. Andy Behrens, your top fantasy storyline for this week is?
Yeah, I'll start with Jaden Daniels. He has been nearly perfect to open his career. He's got 7 combined rushing and passing scores. He's the fantasy QB2, leading the league in completion percentage. Just a brilliant start from him. It is also worth mentioning that Daniels has been eased into the league somewhat, right? He's had matchups against the Giants, the Bengals, the Cardinals. Not trying to dismiss or disrespect his start at all. He's been one of the best and most exciting stories of the year. But I am anxious to see the degree of difficulty ramp up a little bit for Daniels, and it happens this week against Cleveland. So by the numbers, the Browns aren't quite what they were last year at the top of the league, but they are still a stingy defense. They have Pro Bowlers at absolutely every level. Cleveland also has a total game wrecker in Myles Garrett. He's first in pressure rate right now. Just said he's feeling better than he's been feeling at any point since last season. I can't wait for this matchup, which is wild to say, right? I did not think that Cleveland at Washington would be must-watch TV coming into the season, but here we are. It'll just go a long way toward determining whether Daniels is truly matchup-proof.
You mentioned good defense. My top storyline of this is bad defense. And particularly, I think right now the Cincinnati Bengals should be sending flowers to the Dallas Cowboys. If we weren't so obsessed with the Cowboys' inability to stop the run, we might be looking squarely at the Bengals and yelling the same thing. If you look at the numbers, they are at or near the bottom of the league in most of the analytics that matter towards stopping anything. And this is really made for a field day for opposing running backs. Like, I know we're going to get that from the Ravens today, but y'all, I think part of the message here isn't just about the Ravens. It's about just simply every single week, figure out what running back is taking on the Bengals and start them. Because at some point, the Bengals have proven to us, much like the Cowboys have, that they simply don't have the gap responsibility to stop the run at any possible level. So all I'm looking at here is a Baltimore team that I think is going to echo what they did against the Cowboys. They're going to run the ball 45 times. But every single week when you're looking at the waiver wire, just start looking at it, figuring out what running back is taking on Cincinnati. Grab them, start them, and enjoy the points, because the Cincinnati Bengals defense is an absolute embarrassment. All right, Harmon, what do you got as your top fantasy storyline?
Yeah, I'll talk about a guy who's not playing this week, and that's Davante Adams. We don't know where he's going to go. I'll get to that in just a second. Sorry, Fitz, you can just close your ears for the next, 30 seconds or so here. Obviously, we know he is leaving the Raiders. That much has been made clear. A trade is most likely coming, and I'm curious about the impact there on the players that he leaves behind, because if you look at weeks 1 to 3, Adams led the Raiders in air yards by over 100. He is clearly their best vertical receiver, and regardless of what you think about him, he is, in terms of how, is he still an elite receiver? Is he still a top 5 guy? Whatever. He is still clearly a coverage dictator. It's not a coincidence that in the first 3 weeks, Brock Bowers led the pass catchers in Las Vegas in targets per route run. Again, by a pretty healthy gap there too. Adams' presence opens up so many things for those other guys. I'm curious to see how teams defend Brock Bowers, who's been one of the few reliable tight ends in fantasy. Does the run game, it's not been good so far, but do they get even more squeezed when Adams eventually leaves? And then in terms of where Adams is going to go, honestly, it's tough to find a clear-cut spot where I'm like, yes, he is a top 10 fantasy receiver. He goes here. I mean, shoot, the game that's going on right now, I don't know about you guys out there, but that doesn't look like an offense that's a Davante Adams away from salvation. So having a tough time figuring out where Adams is going to go. But of course, I'm very curious to see what happens.
Yeah, I'll just tell everybody to go watch Inside Coverage on Yahoo Sports, where I explained very clearly why I don't think he's going anywhere. How about that for a hot take on a Sunday? Tera, go ahead, and that's a tease too. Go check out Inside Coverage. Tera, give us your fantasy storyline for this week.
That's spicy. I don't know if my storyline's as spicy as that, Fitz, but it's Derrick Henry. It is Derrick Henry, the Ravens, and the utilization that he's had over the past couple of weeks. The Ravens started off 0-2, and understandably so, with the loss to Kansas City, but then an inexplicable loss, sorry Fitz, to Vegas. In those losses, Henry had under 20 touches, and obviously the Ravens figured out, hey, this is not the path to success. Maybe we should lean on this guy that's 6'3" and 250. Maybe that'll do it. So they turned it around. Over 25 touches over the past 2 weeks in each game, over 150 yards, 2 total touchdowns in each game. You just wonder how long they're just going to keep this going in terms of feeding him such aggressive volume and essentially abandoning the pass. At some point, somebody's going to figure out how to stop Derrick Henry, but obviously this is definitely not the week. We just talked about that Cincinnati defense, so it's not happening here. But at the same time, Cincinnati is so bad against the pass. So the Ravens have options here. It's not like Buffalo where they said, okay, Buffalo's very difficult against the pass. We're just going to attack them on the ground. We're going to win that way. It's accessible. You can attack Cincinnati any way you want. So I think we're going to learn a lot here in terms of just how dedicated are they to these 25 plus touches every single game for Henry. Are they going to take the gas off when they don't absolutely have to? What kind of situation do we get when the game's maybe a back and forth with this Bengals offense? So although Derrick Henry has been fantastic, I'm not saying anything negative about him, but I feel like we're going to learn a lot about how they're going to use him in different types of matchups this week.
Imagine having a two-time MVP and not even using him to need him to win games. That's what the Ravens are doing right now when it comes to Lamar. Quickly, I'll update you guys and tell you that the Vikings are still up on the Jets 17-10. The Vikings have the ball. They are in plus territory. We will keep you updated on that as it goes and how it impacts your fantasy lineup. In the meantime, get to some last-minute pickups. You guys need this. This is your help. This is your desperation Hail Mary. Players you could add. That means that 50% of the less on our rosters are actually right now currently out there. So you can start them Sunday or Monday with all the bye weeks. Let's look at some last-minute pickups. Tara, we'll start with you. Somebody that's out there and available in a bunch of leagues that somebody should get right now.
Oh, man. Somebody who is out there and available in a bunch of leagues that everybody should get right now. I feel like someone that you could turn to if you have to would maybe be at the tight end position with David Njoku. I know he's not available in a ton of leagues, but I feel like if you check your rosters and check your waivers and see whether or not somebody is going to have previously dropped him, maybe he's out there and you don't notice it because his projections haven't updated. So take a look and see if he's out there, because quite frankly, with David Njoku, if he's available for you, I mean, he could possibly, even being limited this week, be a top 10 performer at the position. That's how desolate tight end has been. So that's the direction that I would turn to.
All right, Matt Harmon, give us somebody that's out there that you've got your eye on.
Yeah, typically when we talk in these segments, we got to like present underlying data, stuff like that, because, this guy hasn't quite popped off yet, but this might be the week. But this guy had a big week in the box score last week in Panthers rookie wide receiver Xavier Legette. Scored a touchdown, had over 60 yards, caught a bunch of passes, and he's still only 31% rostered despite having that big week last week. And there's actually a lot of underlying data that I think is really positive for Legette here. First of all, he saw a bunch of opportunity, ran around on over 80% of the dropbacks, saw double-digit targets, second behind Deontay Johnson, replacing Adam Thielen there as that number 2 wide receiver in Carolina. And also from my own personal perspective, watch a lot of these rookie wide receiver prospects when they're coming into the draft, and sometimes like, God, I really hope this guy gets used in this way, and the coaching staff doesn't quite see it that way, so he can't quite hit his potential. I just thought Legette was used in the exact type ways I'd love to see him used as an NFL player. A lot of routes over the middle of the field. He's not just stuck there at X receiver running vertical routes because he's a big guy with speed. I think he is in the right role for his success in Carolina, and obviously Andy Dalton has emerged as a quarterback answer for them there. So tougher matchup this week against the Bears, but if you do need flex help, I do think Legette's a pretty decent option.
Quick update for all you fantasy players out there. The Vikings just scored a 53-yard field goal that stretches their lead to 10 with about 12 minutes to go. They are up 20-10. Andy Behrens, give us somebody that you've got out there that is a last-minute pickup.
Yeah, Antonio Gibson is still available in about 2/3 of Yahoo leagues. He's expected to draw the start at running back for the Patriots this week. Ramondre Stevenson is getting his hand slapped for early season fumbles. Let's just ignore the fact that Gibson himself has a dozen career fumbles, including like 4 last season. He hasn't done it in New England yet, so he has a clean slate. Gibson is also averaging 5.3 yards per carry this year, 6.6 yards per touch. And this week, he gets Miami. That is a defense that's allowed the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Miami also the rare matchup for New England in which we can reasonably expect game flow to be favorable to the run. So I don't think, there's any point in this game where Gibson is shut out. Stevenson still expected to be involved for the Patriots, of course. It's not baseball. Starting status isn't everything. So no one is promising you 20 touches for Gibson necessarily, but he's an efficient back with a friendly matchup who's in line for a big jump in volume.
All right, Tara, Matt, you guys get to take a breather. Andy, let's go to some make your pick. We're going to look at some tough flex decisions with a bunch of players submitted by you amazing people. Remember, hashtag AskFFL to get in on some of the questions we will answer throughout the course of the show. You can also chime in on the YouTube chat. Let's get one here from J.R. Forenzo, who asks, Diggs, Wicks, Pittman, Higgins, or Hubbard start 3 full PPR? What do you think?
Man, first of all, I think you and Harmon were talking about it at the top. I'm out here in leagues starting like Greg Dortch, and look at this guy with all these options. This is awesome. I'm gonna take Steph Diggs obviously in the revenge game. I'm gonna take Michael Pittman with Joe Flacco at the controls. I think there's a good chance that we're gonna get 8 catches, 9 catches, something like that, high volume there. And I'm probably going to go, I know you want to start Dontavian Wicks because, man, 2 touchdowns last week. You just added him from waivers. But I'm going to go T. Higgins here. He's just too good. It is a very favorable matchup for him. We know they're going to be throwing all day against Baltimore.
The next question comes from Timmery, who says, yes, my flex is tough because of the following. Do I overdo it on Packers? PPR, torn between Kraft and Frying with the tight end. Then need 2 wide receivers, Wicks, Worthy, and Kirk. Oh, wait. And my starting running back is Jacobs. Wow, there's a lot of Packers.
Yeah, I hear you on this, right? It does seem a little bit silly to load up on Packers, but I will say you're loading up on an offense that should be able to get to 28, 30 points, 31 points, something like that. This is a team that gets to face the Rams secondary. The Rams secondary giving up over 9 yards per attempt, so it's a really good spot. I'm going to go Kraft here. Not only is Tucker Kraft coming off a good game, Luke Musgrave also dealing with injury this week, so I like Kraft. Just a higher ceiling to the offense generally. This is going to be terrible, but I'm going to tell you to start Dontavian Wicks too. You're not going to feel comfortable with all these Packers, but I guarantee most of them are going to go off for you. And then it comes down to Worthy or Kirk, and that's almost a format dependent question. If it's full PPR, I probably lean Christian Kirk over Xavier Worthy.
All right, let's get another one in here from HK. It says full point PPR need 2, wide receiver 2 and flex. Hill, Rashid, Jennings, Sutton. Thanks, HK. I like
I'm not at a point yet where I'm willing to sit Tyreek Hill for the likes of Juwan Jennings, Cortland Sutton. I can't get there. So I'm going Tyreek Hill here, and I'm going to trust that at some point they figure out how to get one of the NFL's most dynamic playmakers the ball consistently and in positive positions. And then I think I'm going to go Rashid Shaheed here. Just an absolutely explosive player, a little boomer bust, but man, the ceiling for Shaheed in any given week is just too high for me. All right, we're gonna take one more here from Fourth Anna Miles, and this question is: need help for a 10-team full PPR league with points for first downs and bonus points for all kinds of yardage bonuses here, 100 yards, 150, etc. Do I go with McLaurin, Shaheed, or Chase Brown for my flex? Okay, I'm not going Chase Brown against Baltimore. I think that's way too stingy a run defense. I know that Chase Brown coming off the 2-touchdown game, we like that, but I'm not going that route. And man, I gotta go McLaurin here. I realize I just said how much I loved Rashid Shaheed. He's a little boom busty, but I think Terry McLaurin, even in a more difficult matchup against Cleveland, it's just a great spot for him, and he's playing so well.
By the way, Fourth and a Miles, I didn't get to make my joke. That's how I feel at the end of every drive from my favorite football team. Okay, Matt, Tara, you guys give everybody some clues on the tough spots coming into today.
Yeah, Tara, let's talk through some tough spots here. We're gonna help each other out a little bit. We've been saying, this whole time, we've got a bunch of problems with our fantasy rosters because of these bye weeks, because of some injuries. So let's talk through some tough spots that we are in this week. You taking it with the first one here.
Oh man, I'm going to take us to a flex question here. I am looking at Chase Brown versus Wan'Dale Robinson, and it feels like a weird spot that we have gotten. Yeah, it feels super weird. When I look at all the metrics for Chase Brown compared to Zach Moss, in my mind, I'm like, and I love Chase Brown. I'm like, that, he's the better back. But the problem is I just don't know if Cincinnati sees it that way. And is this trend of him getting more touches every single week going to continue to rise? Is this a full-blown committee at this point? Or should I just go with Wan'Dale Robinson and say, okay, Malik Neighbors is out. Volume's going to hopefully be there. But how is this offense without Neighbors? Is Daniel Jones just going to be a complete mess? I don't know. Both of these could have high upside, but both of them could just be kind of like, eh.
Yeah, we have a whole catalog of film from last year to know what the Giants offense looks like without Malik Neighbors, and it looks pretty bad. It looks really bad, as a matter of fact. So, I think if this is a full PPR, I think you can scam your way to the Wan'Dale Robinson over Chase Brown thing, but oh, Tera, I don't know. I am the world's biggest Wan'Dale Robinson hater. All the Dynasty bros in my Discord too. So I'm a big hater in this regard. Fake wide receiver, PPR scam stuff. That's not for me. I'll go to mine here. So I want to know what's the line for Dontavian Wicks, and what I mean by that is, like, when do we get to the cutoff point where it's like, okay, you got to play this guy over Wicks. And for people who are like, who the heck is Dontavian Wicks? We know he had 13 targets last week. He scored 2 touchdowns. Very up and down game overall. But this is an extremely talented wide receiver who is definitely getting a bump in opportunity this week because Christian Watson is banged up and Romeo Doubs is on a 1-game suspension for conduct detrimental to the team. Whenever Wicks is out there, this guy's a great route runner. He separates, and that's why he gets a ton of targets. So for me, I settled him around like wide receiver 22 this week, which means I'm probably playing him over guys like Michael Pittman. I'm probably playing him over guys like Brian Thomas, who I really like this week as well. But I'm wondering, Tera, more so, the guys that I've got, kind of right ahead, and I've got these guys on rosters as well, is Dontavian Wicks a better play than guys like Zay Flowers, than Terry McLaurin, even Tyreek Hill playing behind with a busted quarterback situation? So I'm curious, what is the line for Dontavian Wicks this week?
It's funny. Initially, when you said wide receiver 22, I was like, oh my gosh, Matt, that's so aggressive. And then I looked right here and I'm like, oh, I've got him at wide receiver 25. So I guess we're pretty aggressive on that one too. So yeah, it's right around in that area where we've got Terry McLaurin and Zay Flowers, and we're hoping these guys, we're hoping, okay, good matchup here for Zay Flowers. But again, we talked about this earlier. How much volume can we expect for him? At the same time, I feel like I know the volume that Wicks is going to get. And I know it feels shaky looking at a wide receiver who technically is not a starter. And, maybe you turn and look across the field and say, well, Demarcus Robinson getting that opportunity doesn't push him up into a wide receiver too. But I feel like it's different with Dontavian Wicks. The talent is real. So I'm with you. I think the line is a low-end wide receiver too. And the upside, as we know, is top 3 wide receiver technically.
Absolutely. Okay, give me your last one. In fact, one of the players I just mentioned that I might be playing Dontavian Wicks over is one of the guys you're juggling here.
I feel like this one is a fun one. It's not one of those deep, Trey Sermon type of questions here that we're struggling with. This one is more of a, how much are we trusting these wide receivers? It is Michael Pittman or Brandon Ayuk. And you talked about the increase of volume that we could see here with Joe Flacco here. If this was Anthony Richardson, I could maybe say, okay, it feels crazy to bench Ayuk. We're going to give him another chance, especially in a good matchup here. But the thing is that we've already seen Brandon Ayuk in an excellent matchup this season, and the results were he was just underwhelming, and Juwan Jennings was fantastic. He was the guy that went off. We're not getting the Brandon Ayuk that presumably the San Francisco 49ers just paid for. On the other hand, we turn over to Michael Pittman, now has Joe Flacco, and we all feel a little bit more secure in terms of the pass volume with Flacco at the helm. He is the cure-all for long-suffering receivers, coming off of this fantastic game where he literally tripled his yardage in a bad matchup, and now he's got this holy grail matchup against the Jags. Is this a time where I'm saying, okay, this is it. We finally got to bench Brandon Ayuk because the upside here is just way too high for Pittman?
Tera, I think we all share this, the 4 of us on the show, the opinion that, hey, we don't know everything. We don't have all of the answers. You guys out there sometimes watching, listening, whatever, you got to trust yourselves here. If you can live with benching Brandon Ayuk and he goes off against the Cardinals, Michael Pittman's in a good enough spot to do it. So this is all about personal preference to me. And, sometimes that's the right answer. What can you live with? What will make you sleep easier at night? There's not much in fantasy football that makes me sleep easy at night. But if you can make this decision, it helps you sleep at night, I'm totally okay with it. So those are our tough spots for the week. Hopefully you guys out there are able to get something for your personal lineups out of that.
All right, let's turn to our fantasy game changers for this week, powered by Ram Trucks, where we're identifying some of the most impactful players in one of the top fantasy matchups on the schedule. Sunday Night Football, Dallas taking on Pittsburgh. We know this game. Everybody's got eyes on it. This game is in Pittsburgh. The Steelers are a 2.5-point favorite. The over-under on it is 44. So when I say fantasy game changer, Matt, you say?
Yeah, I mean, CeeDee Lamb, fantasy game changer. I guess we can talk about CeeDee Lamb, but my question here is like, is there anything in Dallas we care about besides CeeDee Lamb from a fantasy perspective? You know, I write a weekly preview column, and part of it is give me the biggest storyline for this team. Every week I'm kind of like, I don't know what to talk about with the Cowboys. Like, okay, Brandon Cooks is not playing. Brandon Cooks wasn't really doing that much anyways. He didn't look like the same player. So we're getting Jalen Tolbert a role promotion. Jake Ferguson, can he continue to look like one of the right answers in Dallas at the tight end position? Let's hope so now that he's a little healthier. So for me, it's just, I could sit here and tell you about it. Wow, CeeDee Lamb, great player, coming off a great week. Joey Porter Jr. mostly plays outside. It's probably not as big of a matchup concern as people think because CeeDee lines up so much inside. I'm more so curious when we turn this game on tonight. Are we going to find out, like, oh, is Rico Dowdle a bigger player than we think? Can Jalen Tolbert step up and be a number 2 wide receiver? Those, I think, are the more pertinent questions going forward. Not starting them against a Pittsburgh defense. I wouldn't be going that deep for the Dowdle, Tolbert types. Ferguson probably has a good matchup here. But, again, beyond Lamb, we're just searching for things to talk about with these Dallas Cowboys.
It's crazy that the offense is one-dimensional, which it has been for the last several years, and they still won 12 games. This year doesn't look like they're headed to that result. Tara, what do you got when I say fantasy game changer in this one?
I feel like I can't talk about anything but Justin Fields and his miraculous turnaround from escaping Chicago. Sorry, Andy, about that. But Justin Fields is coming off his best performance of the season, remaining very efficient. He's a changed man over here. Completing about 65% of his passes. He broke 300-yard marks for literally the first time this season, about the second time in his entire career. And then adding a passing touchdown on that. Then he had carries on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns, 3 total touchdowns, overall QB1 finish for the week. He was fantastic, and he just looks great. And you have to say that this is the guy, again, who we now see him in maybe a different light against now a net defense last week in Indianapolis. But even against Dallas this week, I feel comfortable with ranking him and pushing him higher up the rankings. We've talked about Dallas and their woes. They have had woes on defense as well, dealing with injuries. It's not the same that we've seen in the past. So I feel like Justin Fields can absolutely take over this game, both from a game manager perspective and from a volume perspective, and on the ground, he's got it all in this matchup.
Yeah, say it with me. Coaching matters. That's all I'm saying when it comes to offensive coordinators, particularly. Andy Behrens, when I say fantasy game changer, you say?
Well, first of all, how about Harmon disrespecting fantasy league winner Brandon Aubrey? That's outrageous. He's carrying us. I'll go, however, with Najee Harris here. He is just in an incredible spot this week. It's an almost perfect storm situation in fantasy. First of all, Jaylen Warren and Cordero Patterson are out this week against Dallas. The Cowboys defense, we've talked about it already. They've been generous against the run all season, giving up over 145 rushing yards per game. And this week, Dallas is without Parsons. They're without Lawrence. I realize Harris has been a relatively inefficient back this season, but he does have at least 16 touches and 70-plus scrimmage yards in every game, so volume hasn't been an issue to this point. He could be looking at a season high in touches this week, given the state of the backfield. I think we're getting 100 total yards and a touchdown from Najee this week. The Cowboys have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing running backs, and again, that was with a better version of this defense.
All right, the first half of the show is coming to a close. That means it's time to get everybody huddled up and get ready for the hurry-up offense, where you guys have submitted questions. We will get through them with the 25-second clock and see what kind of damage we can do. HR starts with 1 PPR. Pick one for flex. Worthy versus New Orleans, Jennings versus Arizona, or Javonte Williams versus Vegas. Hashtag AskFFL. Harmon, what do you think?
Oh, God, I was really hoping you were not going to ask me this question. Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot. Man, I think I'll go Xavier Worthy because I'm a total coward. I don't love the play this week, but if you need that, upside, go with that. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
Oh, Matt, Harmon, totally out of that. Jeff comes in next. Hashtag AskFFL and throws in the bonus. Hashtag Yahoo Fantasy Football. Half PPR, need 2 of these 4. Hill, McLaurin, Wicks, Brian Thomas Jr. What do you think, Tara?
Oh, I feel so bad doing this to Tyreek Hill because he is, in fact, Tyreek Hill. But all of these guys technically might be better options than him. I like Terry McLaurin this week, continuing the volume he's had, and Brian Thomas. Love this matchup.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen with Tyreek. All right, next up, Matt. I can start 2 of Wan'Dale Robinson, Xavier Legette, and Tank Dell. Who do I choose? What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Matt on Wan'Dale Robinson. The ceiling for the Giants offense is just so low without Neighbors and Singletary. I don't really want to go there. I'm going to go Leggett. I'm going to go Tank Dell. There's a big game coming for Tank Dell, and this should be a shootout.
All right, one more we'll get in here real quick before we'll get more in there later in the show. But one more getting in right here. Monica says, #AskFFL. Pick 2, Jennings, Atwell, Coleman. Harmon, you're our wide receiver guy. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Juwan Jennings in a good matchup. Again, he should continue to get some decent playing time here. Tutu Atwell, man, nobody wants to talk about it, but he's got a great role in the Rams offense, running a bunch of routes right now, consistently making downfield plays, which is not consistency, not usually his thing, but those are the 2 guys I'm going with.
All right, before we continue the show, one of my favorite shows that we have here is McCoy and Van Noy. It's a great pod. Make sure you check it out. Obviously, 2 players right there talking to other players at times, and that happened this week when they talked to Trent Williams about some of the struggles early on for the 49ers. Check this out.
This season, I would say, hasn't started as on the up and up as the past couple, but you guys have one of the best teams in the league at weathering the storm. CMC is not there. Kittle dealt with an injury. Debo dealt with an injury. What has it been like making that adjustment, and what do you see moving forward? Because I was asked, am I worried about the 49ers? I'm like, of all the teams? Nah, that's injuries, and they'll work that out.
It's such a pro and a con to kind of start off hot. Usually the teams that start off hot, they kind of fizzle out. Some of the best careers that we've ever known came from injury. Right. A la Tom Brady, even going to most recent. Nobody knew who Brock was until we lost 2 quarterbacks. So, the injury is just a time for younger players to step up and make a name.
All right, unlike the food in London, things are actually getting spicy over the pond. That's just an absolute trash. But London food is bad, I'm telling you. I don't care what anybody says. Garrett Wilson just scored a touchdown from Aaron Rodgers, obviously, after a big interception of Sam Darnold. So we now are waiting the extra point as we speak, but Minnesota is still up in this game. The extra point is good. It is now 20-17 with 6 minutes to go in the 4th quarter. So all you Garrett Wilson holders in your fantasy football league, you just picked up some points on a nice touchdown from Aaron Rodgers in a goal-to-go situation. So we will keep you updated on that game as it happens. And don't miss me with the curry conversation in London, too. Like, that's not really British food. Okay. Anyway, all right, let's get to the next matchup everybody's thinking about. Saints-Chiefs, big matchup this week. We thought we'd highlight that because it has a ton of fantasy implications. The Chiefs on this 5.5-point favorites. The over-under on it is 43. Andy Behrens, your thoughts on fantasy for this matchup?
Yeah, man. For me, this is Kansas City's receiving room. They have just arrived at an almost tragic place, right? Rashee Rice out for an indefinite period of time. We don't really know. We don't specifically know the nature of the injury just yet, but he's going to be out for a while. Hollywood Brown done for the year. The receiver position was supposed to be a team strength for the Chiefs, but this is just objectively terrible. Juju Smith-Schuster is the kind of player who seems like a nice idea for the roster until you have to actually play him, which they now do. Ditto for Justin Watson, for McCole Hardman. Fitz, this team put Sky Moore on the field for 13 snaps last week in the year 2024. It's bad. And the backfield isn't any better either. So we've never seen Mahomes working with fewer capable weapons than he has right now. Xavier Worthy has not been targeted more than 4 times in any game, which sort of tells you something about where he's at in the development journey, which is fine. He's a rookie. But man, they're going to have to try to lean on him now. And the path, I think, this week is pretty clear for a Travis Kelce surge. He gave us 7 catches, 89 yards last week, and Kansas City is just absolutely going to need at least that much in this one against the Saints.
Well, and that takes me to my main thought on this, which is I really believe that the approach for Travis Kelce this year was breaking case of emergencies during the regular season. You don't need him. You're conserving him. We saw that last year. We kept saying, well, Kelce's over. He's over the hill. It's all done for Kelce. And then what did we see in the playoffs? An eruption. It was like he was waiting to press the turbo button until he absolutely had to. Unfortunately, that luxury has been taken away because they're going to need the turbo button from him now. There's been a lot of conversation about whether he's washed, how good he can possibly be. But the fact is he's going to have to be great. He is. There is no doubt. but they're going to have to utilize more of Travis Kelce now than I think they intended to. And you look at his points per game, it's way down from last year. That's an important part of this conversation, but I don't think they have that luxury anymore. Unfortunately, they're going to need a lot of Travis Kelce. So the two things that really are curious to me is what's that mean for right now, but also if they are trying to conserve Kelce for later in the year, what does that mean for where the Chiefs actually end up? Matt Harmon, what do you have your eye on in this one?
Yeah, I'm really curious how the Saints can get Chris Olave free in this game, because we know we have a lot of respect for the Chiefs defense, especially their pass rush, and mostly Trent McDuffie, their cornerback there. They have a lot of guys playing, I think, well in the secondary right now. They're still about an average to maybe slightly below average pass defense in a variety of efficiency metrics. So I think it's really just about getting your spots against this Chiefs secondary. So that's my curiosity here is, Clint Kubiak in the first 2 weeks in positive and neutral game scripts, absolutely cooking. Right? Hey, we saw so much motion. We saw so much play action, shot plays. Love the route tree that Chris Olave has, where he's running a lot more intermediate in-breaking routes. Almost never saw him do that in his first 2 seasons. So I think as long as they can find the right spots for Olave here, he can get by in what looks like kind of a, quote, tough matchup. It's just about, can they block it up front? Can they stay in a neutral game script, or will they cede a lead to this limited Chiefs offense?
All right, Tara, what do you have your eye on?
I have my eye on Alvin Kamara versus this very tough Kansas City run defense. Alvin Kamara has been absolutely dominating the Saints backfield. It's been wonderful to finally see. The touches have been outrageous. And unlike in prior years, we've actually got rushing touchdowns here. That's always been an issue. But now he has actually equaled his total rushing touchdowns from 2023 already. We're just in week 5 and he's already there. Now, we've seen dominance from Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, but Alvin Kamara is the overall RB1 in half PPR this season. But now he's facing the Kansas City Chiefs defense. They've been an absolute no-go for running backs across the board. I talked about Derrick Henry. They even held Derrick Henry in check in week 1 as well. So looking at Alvin Kamara in this matchup, wondering, now we've got the benefit of Taysom Hill being out, so that does help as well, but this is going to be fun to see him. It hasn't been layups completely this early season, but this is the first time that he's faced an absolute shutdown defense. So to see what kind of volume he gets here, to see if he can still get those rushing touchdowns, what it looks like in this matchup, I'm very excited to watch this.
One thing we all know is that the Chiefs and Spags find a way to make things look ugly. So we'll see how that plays out in the game. Let's get to primetime picks. You know what we do. We take 3 primetime games. We do a snake draft, and then we figure out using the flex players who has the best. Oh my, what's that little highlight mean? What's that? Is there a highlight next to that number of 50.9? Oh, did somebody get off the schneid? Oh, it feels good. I am back, baby. A big win for me. I'd like to thank my life coach. I'd like to thank everybody that helped make it possible.
You're still in third. You are still in third place.
I am tied for second. All right, we have plenty of time for the tiebreakers.
You are last.
I see a third next to your name, not a 2T. I see a third.
I was in third for a while last year too, but we all know how that ended up. Woo! I'm still waiting on my championship belt. All right, so the games this week, we've got Green Bay versus the Rams. We've got Dallas versus Pittsburgh. We've got New Orleans versus Kansas City. And as you can see, because of the point tiebreakers, it decides the draft order. And Andy Behrens, who I think at this point is playing the tortoise in the hare, he's just letting us all. He's just going to slow and steady. He's waiting to get his roll going. Andy, you've got the first pick in this just juggernaut of a trio of games.
This is nonsense, by the way. I'm not last in points, okay? You're still buried in terms of points. I'm doing okay here. I don't know what this electoral college nonsense is that we're using as a scoring system, but I'm doing okay. I don't feel like I'm last. Apparently I am. I'm gonna go CeeDee Lamb. Harmon talked this earlier. Like there's just not many trustworthy players in this game for fantasy purposes. There might be 2 who qualify for the flex, right? I can't draft Brandon Aubrey here, so I'm gonna go Lamb. He's coming off a good game. More importantly, again, for our purposes, there are just not 4 guys here that I want.
Yeah, by the way, I'll wear my point number on my back so you can see it since I'm in front of you. But I will say this as I go to pick. I'm kind of with you that there isn't a lot I like there. There isn't a lot I like for most of these games. And even though I think Tara makes really strong points about why Kamara is going to have a difficult time running the football, I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara here because I think this is what I can bank on. that with no Taysom Hill, they're going to have to use even more of Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. I think he's going to get a lot of touches with the ball in screen situations. I still think Derek Carr is the king of dump-offs, which is going to give him a lot of targets in this game. When there's not a lot that will come easy, I think Kamara is going to get a big workload in this. So I take Kamara mostly because I don't want to have to wait all the way until he gets back to me to figure out who to take in that nightmare of a matchup. So I'm taking Kamara second, which brings us to you, Matt Harmon, who I should remind you is tied with me in total wins. Go ahead.
Ignoring that, focusing on what the listener wants to hear, which is some fantasy analysis. Look, every time I do this, I completely get banged in this contest, but I am going to take a player from the game that I think is the least the most difficult, like not a lot of great matchups. So I'm going to go George Pickens here. And look, I'm excited to take George Pickens. He's the last guy I think from this game that I would actually be excited to take. He's been balling out this year. He's playing extremely well. The Cowboys, look, they're missing Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, so Justin Fields should have some time to sit back there and launch some deep passes to George Pickens. He'll be my third pick here.
We do, but quickly updating, we just got a field goal from the Vikings. They stretched their lead at this point, but important for everybody else, we get a field goal at this point. They are now up by 6 with about 3 minutes to go in that Sunday, early morning matchup. We'll keep you updated on that. All right, Tara, you get 2 picks in a row right now. What do you got?
It's been fun waiting for my picks here at the turn while you guys just kind of argue it out here. I should stop talking crap before I have a bad week. We're going to have a fantastic week here. And I would love to take one of my beloved Packers players here, but I'm taking Kyren Williams here, the overall RB4. Maybe I'll regret it because Jaden Reed has been absolutely insane, but Kyren Williams has been dominating the Rams backfield. Blake Corum is non-existent. We've got no fears. Everybody that drafted him in is absolutely eating. The Packers have typically been stronger against the pass than the run, so I am expecting another 100 yards on the ground for Kyren to help me continue my lead here. For my second pick, I am taking Chris Olave. It's a tough matchup, but strategically, I think this is the right move right here to go ahead and grab Olave here. Since you grabbed Dalton Kamara, Olave's volume has been rising, been fantastic, and he's been very steady. So if I can't have Alvin Kamara from this matchup, the only guy that I really trust here other than him is going to be Chris Olave.
All right, and that means, Harmon, you are back up. What do you got for us?
Yeah, once again, going to pass up that Rams-Packers matchup because I'm very confident that once it gets back to me for the second to last pick in this draft, there's going to be somebody good left on the board there. See at least 3 guys I want to take. So I'm going to go with Travis Kelce here on Monday Night Football. You guys mentioned he is going to have to step up. He did step up last week, had over 40% of the first read targets. Very confident Kelce can be the lead receiver for the Chiefs, even if their offense continues to look a little ugly.
All right, so that brings me back up, and this is really about either Jaden Reed or Josh Jacobs, and I'm going to go safe here. I feel like Josh Jacobs, in this situation, gets a lot of carries. I like Josh Jacobs, plus I'm still not 100% convinced I love the quarterback situation as much as everybody else does for the Packers. So I will take Josh Jacobs here with a hint of sadness here because I think Andy Behrens is going to make me regret that, and then the whole week I'm just going to be thinking about those 2 players. Andy, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I feel like the choice is made for me with the Packers-Rams game, right? Kyren gone, Jacobs gone. I'm going Jaden Reed. He is the one receiver in that receiving room who's been just a consistent right answer. No Christian Watson this week due to injury. No Romeo Doubs because he's unhappy that he's not as good a football player as Jaden Reed, I guess. So Reed it is. Plenty of volume. Really good shot at finding the end zone. And then my other pick, I'm going to go Kareem Hunt. And maybe a more courageous fantasy guru would have taken Rashid Shaheed here. I think he's got some upside as well. But Hunt was the guy who clearly led the Chiefs' backfield last week. I don't know how much longer that's going to last, but it should sustain itself for at least one more game.
So I'm sitting here amazed that I'm about to take 3 running backs because I feel like I'm playing fantasy football in the 90s. But Najee's available, and I'm going to take him. And this isn't because I think Najee's particularly good right now. It's because I feel like the Cowboys' run defense, I'm pretty sure Harmon could strap on pads and still get 80, 90 yards on that one. He's going to be sore the next day, but I like his odds on it. So this isn't about Najee. This is about the Cowboys 100%. So I will take my lack of belief in the Cowboys' run defense as really my third fantasy pick in this. Harmon, before you get sore running up against the Cowboys, who are you taking?
Yeah, I don't think I've got the knees for that at this point, and certainly probably not ever. So my last pick here, like I mentioned, was confident that one of the guys I wanted in this game would get back to me, and I'll take Dontavian Wicks off the board here. Mentioned it earlier, extremely talented wide receiver. He got a bunch of opportunity last week. Probably going to get even more now that Romeo Doubs is not in the mix. He could easily, I love Jaden Reed, but he could outscore Jaden Reed this week, so feeling pretty good about this one.
All right, that means, Tera, you get to clean up this mess. What do you got?
I could go with Rico Dowdle here, but I feel like the safe option for me is to go with Jake Ferguson. Yeah, I'm taking the tight end over the running back, but really that's mainly because I'm convinced that if I pick Dowdle here, that subtly Zeke will see an uptick and steal the show. Realistically, with Brandon Cooks out, we might see an uptick from Jalen Tolbert, but really the big beneficiary here is going to be Jake Ferguson. The volume has been solid for him, so he's a guy that will absolutely not bust here for me as my last pick.
We have hit the 2-minute warning in London. It is a 6-point game. Aaron Rodgers has the ball, which means they're going to tell us how many comebacks Aaron Rodgers has in his career over and over and over again. We will keep you updated if he adds to that list. In the meantime, Andy, Matt, take it away. Give us some fantasy face-off.
Yeah, face-off time. This week, we're talking Kansas City flavor of the week running back Kareem Hunt, who I just drafted in Primetime Picks. He appeared to take over that backfield in the last game. Had 14 perfectly fine, if somewhat uneventful, carries for the Chiefs. Gets a solid Saints defense this week that's been respectable on the year. But they've also given up 4.8 yards per carry, so it's not a stay-away matchup by any means. We're going to talk some sketchy players here, Matt. I think you mentioned it earlier. So let's start with Kareem Hunt or Trey Sermon, also a popular ad this week. He's obviously moving up in Indy's backfield hierarchy in relief of Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, God, yeah. Since apparently you're a Kareem Hunt truther, I'm curious where you fall on this one, Andy Behrens. But yeah, it's wild that all of the backs we're about to talk about, they all feel like pretty names, and they're all, like I said, top 25 backs in my rankings this week. I have Kareem Hunt literally one spot ahead of Trey Sermon, and I don't even know if I really feel that great about it. I think Sermon is going to inherit the Lions' majority of this work here, but I also feel the same way about Kareem Hunt. And it's a slightly better offense, which is weird to say because Pat Mahomes is a quarterback here and Joe Flacco is a quarterback of the other. So I'll give a very, very, very slight edge to Kareem Hunt. But if you do have Trey Sermon, I do think he's a startable running back this week.
Yeah, this is probably one that we're not going to settle for anybody because I too have them very close in the ranks, but I'm going to give a slight edge to Trey Sermon, and that's really just because I get to pick on the Jags defense. I don't feel great about either player either way, and it's going to come down to which one of them actually finds his way to the end zone. How about Jerome Ford versus Kareem Hunt? Ford gets a pretty user-friendly Washington defense. Should be a lot of points there.
Yeah, these two guys shared a backfield last year, so look, back together again. I think Jerome Ford is the pick here. It feels like Jerome Ford, the idea is always better than the actual reality. That's certainly been the case in fantasy this year, but I'm going to go with the idea once more this week. Nick Chubb is getting ramped up. It's probably one of the last weeks you'll actually be able to use Jerome Ford, pretty comfortably. And you mentioned it, it's a good matchup. I could see this game being a little high scoring if Deshaun Watson can actually throw on this pretty beleaguered Washington secondary. So hoping for a touchdown here with Jerome Ford.
Yeah, we're in sync on that one. I would go Ford here as well. A little bit more trustworthy. And again, as you say, we're probably not going to get to use him for very much longer. How about last one here, Kareem Hunt or Zach Moss? Zach Moss is trying to fend off a challenge from Chase Brown, who took a ton of touches last week. He's also running into the teeth of Baltimore's defense, a very good run D.
This is another one where I think I have Zach Moss one spot ahead of Kareem Hunt. So again, the conviction I have, I guess I'll go with Zach Moss on this one. Look, I still think he's going to maintain a slight edge ahead of Chase Brown, especially in a game that likely could get a little pass heavy for the Cincinnati Bengals, because I think they'll be trailing points with Derrick Henry and the Ravens running all over their defense on the other side of things. Moss is the preferred passing down back because he's better in protection. So again, I'm probably just chasing a touchdown here, and I will chase the touchdown on what is definitely the better offense in the Bengals and a guy that I think will be on the field more in Zach Moss.
Yeah, it feels like a wild thing to say. We're talking about like potentially the featured back for the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're like, no big deal. I'd rather have a part-timer with the Bengals, but I agree with you on that. All right, let's send it back.
Not 2016 anymore, Andy Behrens.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, gentlemen, speaking of chasing touchdowns, the Jets are trying to do that right now. They're driving, trying to win this game. We'll keep you updated, but lock it in. Going to take a look at a couple players that, Tera, you're thinking you're going to lock them in this weekend. You are confident. What's first player on your mind?
I don't know about confident there, Vince, but we are locking it in with Kyler Murray this week, coming off of the shockingly bad performance against the Washington defense that he should have lit up. But here's the thing. Murray didn't play bad. It was just that his volume was extremely low. He had literally no contribution on the ground, and this was very stressful for fantasy managers coming off another subpar game against Detroit. And really, when we're looking at this, Murray has only had one top 10 performance, his overall QB1 finish in week 2 against the Rams. And this week, he faces a top 49ers defense, and fantasy managers may be ready to bail out on Kyler Murray, but he is still a QB1 here, very worthy of starting. Look, the Cardinals are 1-3. They cannot afford to limit his volume. It really hasn't been a problem with Kyler. He hasn't been throwing a bunch of interception. He has just one. His efficiency has been around 70%. He's been fine, but the problem is that the Cardinals have had just a very conservative game plan where they're just not letting Kyler Murray have any form of volume. But this game, they're not going to be able to afford to do it. I expect the 49ers to jump up on them and the Cardinals to be forced to pass the ball in order to not become 1-4 here. So we are going to get that Kyler Murray QB1 performance that we have been once again waiting for.
I mean, 1-4 just sounds so staggering. We don't think of that being where they are right now. All right, who else have you got your eyes on?
Got my eyes on Diontae Johnson here. Definitely feeling a lot more confident about this one. Diontae has been fantastic since we've made the switch over to Andy Dalton. Now he's facing Chicago's defense. It's been an absolute no-go for opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers, obviously with one fantastic performance by Nico Collins being the exception here. They've been typically more vulnerable on the ground, but I still like Chuba Hubbard in this matchup, but I do expect that Diontae Johnson will definitely be a continued big beneficiary of Andy Dalton in this matchup. He has absolutely brought Johnson back to life, and it's just a friendly reminder here that it's been a long time since we have seen Diontae Johnson with a quarterback that could accurately and consistently supply him with volume here. So I expect him to have another top 20 performance, very start-worthy, wide receiver 2 at the very least, with wide receiver 1 continued upside here. So we're still locking it in with Diontae Johnson, even in the bad matchup.
All right, we'll get you the update from London. It has just happened in front of my eyes. Aaron Rodgers tries to throw a little bit of behind the receiver pass, looking for the interference. Instead, throws up the interception. Minnesota, it looks like, is going to take a knee and win this game. The score's 23-17, 44 seconds left. Aaron Rodgers does not get the pass interference he was hoping for. Instead, throws the interception. Guys, let's bring everybody back together. We will huddle up. We will get the world caught up on what they need to know as they continue to try and close out their day. It is time for some hurry up offense. Again, 25 seconds go on the clock, and we'll see how many questions can be answered. Tortilla Man, God, that sounds good, says, need one running back and one flex. Amari, Thomas Jr., Odunze, Sermon, Hunt, or Harris. Andy Behrens, what do you think?
One RB and one flex. Okay, my running back here is going to be. My answer is going to be just terrible here. I'm gonna go Trey Sermon on this one, and I assume that is Najee Harris. I don't feel great about it, but.
Did you even? What do you do? Andy Behrens not even running the route. He's just turned around. And he's like, nope, I'm not running this route. Christopher Barris says, ask
I was
FFL,
sitting down in
Terry
the soft
versus
zone,
Cleveland. DJ Moore versus Carolina. T. Higgins versus Baltimore. Harmon, do you want to run a route for me? What are we doing?
Oh, yeah, I'm running crispy technical routes on this one, and I'm going to go with DJ Moore versus Carolina. Him and Caleb's connection's a little bit better. He is out there, and it's a great matchup.
We have come to a final, by the way. 23-17, Minnesota wins. The Jets lose. All right, Ivan asks Tera, JSN, Flowers, or Jennings? Hashtag AskFFL. Tera, what do you think?
I know it's been disappointing over the past couple of weeks with Zay Flowers, but again, this is against Cincinnati. It is an excellent matchup here. I would expect a little bit more pass volume, and I trust Zay Flowers to be the big beneficiary there. So we're taking Zay Flowers over these two.
All right, we'll see if Andy Behrens wants this route or not. This one, like, look, we don't get quarterback questions very often. And this, I appreciate the fact that we're getting a quarterback question that's coming in from Chris. I like this, Andy. It gives you the opportunity to, I'm filibustering now when they pull it up. There we go. Purdy or Stroud? What do you think, Andy?
I'm going to go CJ Stroud here. Great matchup, shootout of a game. I love both these options, both of them top 8 QB options this week.
That's it. That's it. We got 12 seconds.
That was a little screen
used up
you
most
throw
of
the
the clock.
disappointing wide receiver to build up his confidence.
Oh, you know what? Little screen and nothing happened. All right, Darren says, who do I bench in a half PPR? MHJ, Connor, or Chuba? What do you think? Love the show. See, you say love the show, you're going to get in. What do you think? We'll go to Matt here.
Yeah, James Conner's going to be the guy I put down here, unfortunately, on the bench. Chuba Hubbard just getting the lion's share of the touches. It's not a great matchup, but 2 Cardinals, you got to play at Marvin Harrison in this one. So, yeah.
By the way, I just continually say I wish it was Chuba Hubbard. Just sounds more fun. Brian White, probably not the country singer, says need 3 half PPR. Higgins, A-Chain, Thomas Jr., Wicks. What do you think, Tara?
2 easy ones for me are definitely going with Wicks and Brian Thomas there. Now, between Higgins and Achane is where it gets a little shaky here. We want the upside of Achane, but man, it has been tough sledding. Maybe the return of Raheem Mostert hurts it worse, so I'm going to go with Higgins as that 3rd option.
All right, Andy, pay close attention here. All right, this one's from YouTube. Chris on YouTube says half PPR, Cam Akers, Javonte Williams. What do you got?
I am not going to put an official Cam Akers recommendation on my resume. I don't want it. I'm going to go Javonte here. I'm pretty confident the run is going to be in play for Denver all day in that one. I think he's got the cleanest path to 12, 15 fantasy points.
Really? Thank you so much for that. That's good. You know, I'm going to watch that game this afternoon. I appreciate it. It's fine. All right, we'll get Matt. We'll get another YouTube one in here. This is from Mason. Achane or Charbonnet? What do you got?
Oh, jeez. I mean, it hasn't gone that it's been bad for Devon Achane. I totally get it. I have Devon Achane in one league. I know it's bad. It's not playing the Seahawks backup running back bad. I think with Kenneth Walker back in the mix, Charbonnet's not really getting touches to the point where you can play him over Achane. So, yeah, you're going to go with Achane in this one.
See, everybody just needs a hug from Harmon. All right, let's get back to the questions coming in from everybody. I think we're getting back. Jeff. Coach comes in. I'm hugging you for whether you want it or not. HR might get involved. Need 1 PPR. Chase Brown, Roshan Akers, T. Tracy. What do you think? Who are we going to? Tara. It's Tara's turn.
Oh man, why me? Oh gosh, the running back, the bottom of the barrel running back. Now they're all relatively startable-ish here, but Tyrone Tracy is the one that I think is going to have the most volume opportunity here. So we'll go with Tyrone Tracy.
That was the equivalent of like, no, it's fine. It's fine. G-Roth says, need to pick 2 for 1 wide receiver slot in my flex from Ayuk, Olave, Deontay Johnson, and Javonte Williams. What do you think? Andy, be careful on this. I swear to God. And if you give me another Javonte thing here, I might come through the screen. Go ahead.
Oh, hell no. That's not happening here. We have good options opposite Javonte. I'm going to take Chris Olave. I mean, I feel like Chris Olave probably shouldn't even be in this question. He's too good. He's graduated out of this question. I'm going to go Brandon Ayuk as well. I know you don't feel great about it.
I feel great if we always sang Olave like Sinatra. Olave. Okay. Kraft or McBride at tight end comes from Starks. Harmon, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Trey McBride here. You know, Tucker Kraft, love the role that he's got in Green Bay. Definitely someone that I think could be a top 10 tight end rest of season, but I think McBride could be a top 3 tight end rest of season. Coming off an injury, that's a slight concern, but still, I do think he will be a focal point in that Cardinals passing game.
Tara, I apologize in advance. This is a long question. Kristen, full PPR. I'm having a tough time trusting Amari Cooper or his quarterback. Should I have any more trust in Deontay Johnson with Andy Dalton or Brian? Always open Thomas Jr. And let's not talk about his quarterback. Thanks.
Kristen, I like your question and the way that it was written out there. No, you're right. It's tough to trust Amari Cooper right here. I lean towards Deontay Johnson. I actually do trust Andy Dalton here.
Look at that. She had time to spare. Andy, let's see. This is it. This is our touchdown right here. You're going to get it for us. Aaron says Waddle, Pickens, Thomas Jr., Suerman. Make your pick. Ask FFL. What do you think?
Yeah, can't do Waddle in this version of Miami's offense. I'm gonna go George Pickens here. Really like it. He's been the clear number 1 for Justin Fields, and I think he's leveled up this year. Pickens just looks awesome to me. So I feel like every week you're probably going to be leaning George Pickens here.
That was one of those delay games where the clock hit 0, but we still allow it to happen because the ref hadn't seen it yet. All right, Harmon. Cam says Najee Harris or Kirk in flex. What do you think?
Oh, gross. I'm gonna go with Najee Harris in this one. I don't feel great about it, but perhaps he can actually have a good game now that Cordero Patterson on his 20th NFL season, and Jaylen Warren's not in the mix. So hopefully we can get like a 3 yards per carry game against Najee against the Cowboys here.
All right, again, this has been a wild and chaotic day. The Vikings beat the Jets. For everyone that's just tuning in, the Vikings did beat the Jets 23-17. A lot of fantasy points out there. Obviously, Garrett Wilson, 13 catches, 101 yards. Justin Jefferson, 6 catches, 92 yards. Story of this game was turnovers early on, and Aaron Rodgers with an interception late. But if you're a Garrett Wilson guy out there, you got lucky. If you're a guy or girl that had him in there, it scored you a lot of points. In the meantime, we'll always help you score points, or we'll try our best on Thursdays. Make sure you're hanging out with us every Thursday before the Thursday night football game, 7:30 p.m. Eastern every single week. And then obviously we're here every Sunday. Even when the games kick off early, we're still here doing the damn thing. And we are with you every Sunday noon to help you with your perfect fantasy lineup. For Tera Roberts, for Matt Harmon, for Andy Behrens, for everybody behind the show the scenes that worked so hard to put this show together, we appreciate you. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Trucks.